Yeah, is it too late for us to trade this in for Batgirl? What is up, guys? And it is time to kick off the comic book movie season of 2024 with Sony's latest Spiderverse minus Spider-Man movie, Madam Web. So over the last number of years, Sony, who does hold the rights to Spider-Man, has been doing, basically building out a Spider-Verse with their own villain and anti-hero origin stories, while they are still working in collaboration with Disney and the Marvel Studios to do the Tom Holland Spider-Man film. So we had Venom, Let There Be Carnage, we had Morbius, and now this year we have Madam Web, soon to come out as Kraven the Hunter, and by the end of the year, presumably, we're going to get Venom 3. And then we had the trailers for Madam Web. And from the moment those trailers dropped, pretty much collectively as a fan base, we all said, what the fuck is this? But there's been a number of good movies and great movies out there that have had bad marketing and have had bad trailers, so I still tried to hold on to a glimmer of hope while being certainly a bit pessimistic walking into this one. Saw it last night, and I'm here to tell you, we all owe Morbius a giant apology, because this is an abomination. So essentially the story of this movie, you have Madam Web played by Dakota Johnson, who is a EMT driver in New York in the early 2000s. I believe this is set in 2003. We'll get back to that later. And she has a bit of a head injury, and suddenly these powers are awakened where she has a bit of a clairvoyant power. She could see a few minutes into the future, almost like a Final Destination premonition. And then she comes across this plot where this guy wearing a Spider-Man suit who is evil is trying to kill these three young girls before they can eventually become spider heroes that will inevitably defeat him in his older age. She comes across that plot, decides to be the protector of these three girls, and spends the rest of the movie just basically having premonitions that they're about to get hit by something or about to get stabbed by something and saying, "Stop! Turn left! Now you're safe." Now really quick before we dive into the good, bad, and the very ugly of Madam Web, though it would be nice if we could have spider clairvoyant powers to surf the internet safely, the reality is we're probably going to need some help. So check out the sponsor of today's video, Aura. Let me ask you something. Have you ever Googled yourself and been shocked to see how much of your personal information is just readily available on these public listing sites? Not too long ago, I Googled my name, and not only did they have my current personal information, but they had previous addresses and phone numbers going back as far as 15 years. And the scariest part? I didn't have to look that long to find it. Beyond that, do you feel my pain in being completely sick of constant spam phone calls to where you barely even answer your phone anymore? The unfortunate reality is that the world we live in today are filled with data brokers that make a fortune selling all of your personal information to spam callers and robocallers and anybody that is willing to pay for your personal information, including where you live. Well, the sponsor of today's video, Aura, is here to help by identifying these data brokers and even submitting opt-out requests on your behalf. Legally, these data brokers have to delete your personal information if you ask them to, but they make it extremely difficult to do so. So why not just let Aura do all the heavy lifting for you? Aura also protects you while surfing online with parental controls, antivirus, VPN, password management, and even identity theft insurance, all located on one app for an affordable price. So let Aura keep you safe while surfing online so you can continue your day-to-day life with peace of mind. You can either let people continue to exploit and profit off of your personal information, or you can go to aura.com/Cody Leach or click the link in the video description to start your 2-week free trial today. And thank you so much to Aura for sponsoring today's video. Starting off with the good of Madam Web, I do think that there was a basic concept here that could have been really cool. Final Destination as a comic book film is a premise that on paper, I would have been like, hell yes, dump money into that and do it now. That sounds awesome. And I also think that Adam Scott, who has a smaller role here, he's playing Ben Parker. Again, we'll get into that a little bit later. He does pretty decent. I don't know why you would hire Adam Scott for a role that has no humor whatsoever, but for what they give him, which is not very much, he does pretty good. You know, he's the one person here that doesn't really have the opportunity to kind of embarrass themselves. So I thought those two things were pretty good. There were moments where the special effects, the visualization of Madam Web's powers was interesting, or it was at least something unique, with having like this web visual of how her brainwaves are going out and how she's having these different futures or these different apparitions or, you know, these multiple versions of herself. Again, glimmers of promise there. The execution, however, kind of squanders all that promise. And now moving on to the negatives. And look, this is one of those films that I just genuinely think is unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable for the level of production that it had, for the budget that it had, for the amount of talent that it had involved, for the studio that is producing it, that has done a lot of great things. Even within this same franchise, this same universe, how the fuck the same studio that comes out with the Spiderverse films also has Madam Web is something that should be studied in a lab somewhere. This is one of those movies that I just watch it and I don't see anybody's passion. I don't see anybody's love or care or anybody giving a fuck whatsoever in any aspect of the production. There are plenty of movies out there that just happen to turn out bad because there's a million different things that can go wrong during a movie's production, but you feel like there was passion there. There was a director that had a vision. There was a script that had promise. There was actors that believed in this story. There was, you know, different editing tricks that were trying to be unique here. There was something there that you can feel actual passion for their art. And there's none of that in Madam Web. First of all, this script feels like Sony went out and commissioned a couple of writers to just do some weekend first draft scripts on a bunch of different Spiderverse characters so that they can pitch them to a board and see which ones they want to actually bring to film. And the first draft of Madam Web was accepted, and when the writer thought he was going to get 2, 3, 4, 5 more chances to punch up that script, they said, nah, we're good. We're good.
You serious?
The basic setup of this story is very uninteresting. It really leaves no room to have any exciting action sequences. The dialogue is some of the absolute worst dialogue that I have experienced in a theater, maybe since I've been on YouTube. I mean, it's to the point where it should be a parody of what a Madam Web film is. It's like AI cue cards. I mean, you listen to these actors rattling off these lines, and you can just feel the pain in their soul that they have to read these on camera. And God bless some of these actors too, especially Dakota Johnson, because you can just tell that they look at the level of quality that they're given to work with, and they're just like, fuck it. I'm not even gonna try to sell this. I'm not even gonna try to take this seriously. I'm gonna put as much effort into reading this bullshit as you put into writing it, and that's gonna be your fucking movie. And that's exactly what we got. There's so many scenes where you're supposed to have like an emotional reaction or have some kind of gusto to what you're saying that they're just like, no, you're not getting that. I'm sorry. I signed up for this when it sounded like a cool project and you fucked me with this script, so this is what you're getting. I mean, there's an evil Spider-Man crawling on the ceiling when Madam Web first encounters these 3 girls that she's protecting, and she's like, stop, you gotta come with me. It's an emergency. What's the emergency? And she looks and sees the Spider character and she goes, that's your emergency. He's coming to kill you. Let's get out of here. Danger.
Dakota, you're finally in your superhero era. Are you pinching yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it's so exciting and fun, and I feel so proud to be a part of this film and a part of a new kind of a superhero film. It's really fun.
Even the side characters, played by actors that I personally don't recognize. The movie opens up with Madam Web's mother in the Amazon, like searching from some legendary mystical spider with the guy that becomes the villain, and she's got the zoomed in shot where she's taking a picture of a giant perfectly made web, and she's like, yes, we have been searching for this spider for so long. She doesn't want me to finish, but I won't let that happen. And then these 2 fuckers go off. They're like, yeah, we've been spending years presumably trying to find this one spider in this mystical Amazon forest, and I'll be damned if that elusive little bastard is just not here. And the villain goes off, starts to talk with other random side characters, and literally 10 seconds later, Madam Web's mom comes up. She goes, I got it. Found the spider. And beyond the dialogue, I mean, just the story of this movie does not set up any scenario to be an interesting narrative. You would think with the movie being titled Madam Web that we would dive into the character of Madam Web a little bit, but It's just the most surface level, bland, and shallow character exploration that you have seen in any recent memory. And the movie is much more obsessed with focusing on these 3 young girls who are like destined to become Spider Women. And if you've seen the marketing and you've seen like the action sequences where they're all 3 in their different spider suits and their different powers, and it looks like we're gonna have a kick-ass action scene, yeah, that's like 30 seconds long. It's literally a premonition that the villain has in the first 15 minutes of the movie, and that's all you get. That's not a spoiler. I'm sorry, it's not a spoiler. That's the marketing fucking you. That is the marketing baiting and switching you, and whoever cut that trailer knew exactly what they were doing, and Sony heads were probably right over the top of them saying, yeah, we don't have shit to advertise that's going to be interesting, so just make the whole fucking trailer based off of that 30-second premonition, and we'll pretend that that's the movie. Then after we get their money, fuck them. But even these 3 girls, I mean, very talented actresses. We have seen them do really good things in other movies, but did they get any kind of character arcs or explorations or anything interesting to do narratively whatsoever? Fuck no. They're caricatures. You got Sydney Sweeney, who has very recently kind of rose to prominence as this massive sex symbol. So what do? They put her into the schoolgirl outfit with the glasses and make her the quiet, timid nerd. And then you have the girl who was in Dora the Explorer. She was just cast in Last of Us Part 2, who is basically the brainiac. She just starts rattling off these random equations at times where it makes no fucking sense to be sitting there doing mental math. And then you get the other chick who her entire character arc is just, I'm hungry. Give me some food. You won't like me when I'm hangry. Actual line in this movie that's said fucking twice. You won't like me when I'm hangry. And even moving into the third act where things are supposed to kick off and shit's supposed to hit the fan and we're supposed to ramp up all of the action or the excitement or the thrills of the movie, what do we get? We get a sequence where the 3 girls are off in different corners of this rooftop and Madam Web just goes, hey, stop. Something hits in front of them. Now you can go. Wait, turn left. Something shoots in front of them. Now you can go. You're safe now. Stop. Something crashes in front of them. Now go, for like 5 minutes straight. Does that sound fucking exciting to you? Whee! The editing in the film is atrocious, and this is where I go further when I say that just nobody involved in this production gave a fuck. I mean, the editor, I don't know what happened here. Like, I am an amateur as fuck editor. I do Premiere Pro shit to do videos like this. I could have edited this movie better. I mean, you have these random ass zooms for no reason whatsoever. And they were never intended to be there because they're not like in-camera zooms. The camera's not doing the work. It's shit where they just zoom in digitally in the editing room for no reason. Not to accentuate a point, not to do like a dramatic crash zoom like the classic Jaws scene. Nothing. They just do it randomly. It's like, what the fuck? Did you get a certain YouTuber to edit this shit? The premonition scenes, and they're all throughout the movie, are incomprehensible most of the time because they are quick cuts so shoddy together that you can't even really function within the premonition. Like, it's just flashes of things. And most of the exciting potential action is in those quick little flashes because the actual scene that we get to play out in full and actual breathe are the ones where she prevents the exciting thing from happening. So even that is like, what the fuck? And I can't even give credit to the director. Now, maybe we'll find out at some point that the director had a vision for this and he tried to make a really interesting movie and it was interfered constantly with by the studio and there's like 17 different cuts of this movie. Maybe this is a David Ayer situation. Who knows if we'll ever find that out. But until we do, I've got to say, this was not a well-directed film. I mean, one of the director's main jobs is to pull the best performances that they can out of their actors to match the scene and to match what they're going for. Epic fucking fail. From frame 1 to the credits. It may be most exemplified in the villain. And again, I really don't want to blame this actor, just like with all the other actors in this film. I think they were given shit and they said, okay, fine, that's what you're going to get. But this guy might be the worst villain that I've ever seen in a comic book film. And that's a tall order because we have had a plenty of mediocre and shit villains. But the motivation of this guy is weak. He has a dream one night that 3 Spider-Girls are going to kick his ass in like 20 years. So he spends the rest of the movie just trying to find out who these Spider-Girls are so he can kill them before they can eventually turn into Spider-Girls. And his line delivery is abysmal. Not really helped by the fact that over 90% of his dialogue is ADR. I mean, every scene that you watch this guy in, his lips are moving. The words that are being projected through the speakers are something entirely different. The cadence of his voice doesn't match the scene. The tone of his voice doesn't match the scene. Half the shit that he says is like his head is turned. There's a lot of dialogue that's given like while he's crawling around, almost like he's talking to somebody through an earpiece, and there's nobody on the other end of that fucking earpiece. I mean, once you notice it, and you notice it pretty damn soon in the movie, it is so distracting. And that's a mystery in and of itself. Like, what happened there? Like, did they just rewrite the entire villain's motivations last minute and they had to just redo the entire script into a microphone in a sound studio? Did he piss off the director and they brought in somebody else to change his voice just to give a subtle fuck you? Like, I genuinely don't know, but every scene this guy is in is like this. I've had the same vision every night. They will come for me. They will defeat me. I must find who they are before they can do that. I don't know who this person is who is helping these girls, but she's not a problem. We have to focus on the targets at hand. You are just like your mother. I will teach you like I taught her. And now we got to talk about the overall like Spiderverse Peter Parker nods and cameos. Like, it came out not too long ago, I think within the last month, that Madam Web was originally intended to like definitively choose which of the Spidermen, whether it's Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire or Tom Holland, is the canonical Spider-Man for these Spiderverse films. And they were going to have a lot of direct nods to those characters past, and they were just going to have all these little ties and all these puzzle pieces put together. And then they said, oh fuck, yeah, we totally screwed up the timeline in this script. Never mind, cut all that shit and reshoot it. And you hear that and you go, that can't be true. Like, you're a major studio with millions and millions and millions of dollars. Spider-Man is your character. All of these films that you're potentially going to be making references to are yours. Like, if you don't have them on a hard drive somewhere in everybody's computer, you can go on fucking like Disney Plus and Netflix and find everything that you need right there. Go to Wikipedia, for Christ's sake. You've pulled any fucking swinging dick off of the street that's a Spider-Man fan who has no script writing experience and tell him to write a story that ties in with one of these Spider-Man. Even he's not gonna fuck up the timeline. How does it happen? And you watch the final version of this movie and it is 100% apparent that that story was absolutely true. Because you get these random characters in here that have no purpose whatsoever in Madam Web's story other than to make the audience go, ooh, Peter Parker. Like I said earlier, Adam Scott, he plays Ben Parker. He's fucking Uncle Ben. He doesn't do shit in the movie besides hang out with Dakota Johnson and say, hey, I'm going on a date with somebody. I really like her. She's a real special girl. And Dakota Johnson says, oh, what's her name? And the audience says, oh, Aunt May. And he goes, And she goes, oh, we're being secretive, are we? You're gonna play coy with your fucking cameos and your references? Why? They do it again later on. You got Emma Roberts in this movie as Peter Parker's mother. She's pregnant. They go to a fucking baby shower for no other reason than to have Peter Parker's baby shower. And they're playing a game where everybody's trying to guess the name of the baby. We fucking know. We know who the fuck the baby is. It is obvious. There's nobody watching this movie that doesn't know his name is Peter. And what do they do again? When they get to the point where they're going to reveal the name is interruption. And then we never get back to it ever again. There's a line in this movie where, you know, in the middle of everything going on, they have to rush Peter Parker's mother to the hospital. And of course, his father's not there because I guess they ran out of casting money, I guess. And Ben Parker's there for the rescue and takes her to the hospital. And there's a line later on where they say, yeah, the baby's fine. Ben's so excited to be an uncle. He gets to have all the fun with none of the responsibility.
Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. You're cool. And fuck you, I'm out.
We're beyond this. We're beyond this, guys. And I know some of you are watching this and you're thinking, the movie's not that bad. You're going over the top. It's not that bad. Yes, the fuck it is. When you have to say it's not that bad, or one of the common ones that I saw as a Twitter defense over the past 2 days is, well, it's not the worst movie I've ever seen. A movie can be unacceptable trash while simultaneously worse movies exist. I'm not saying this is the worst thing I've ever seen, because it's not. But for a movie to have this level of production, to have this level of a budget, to have this much talent behind and in front of the camera, to have this type of studio backing, to have so many years, decades of lessons to be learned of how to and how not to make a comic book film, and their most recent endeavor being one of the biggest examples of what not to do. The fact that they made this, the fact that this made it in front of screens, and they had the audacity to ask all of us to pay to see it, go fuck yourself. You know, we live in an age where there's a lot of controversy around this new practice of just scrapping movies for a tax write-off. They did it last year, the year before with Batgirl. They're getting ready to do it again with Coyote versus Acme. That especially has caused a lot of controversy. You look at a movie like this and you're like, you know what? There's actually times where that would make sense, because I don't think a single fucking person whose name is in the credits wants this to see the light of day. They probably would have preferred that Sony took a tax write-off on this one. But worst of all, as kind of the closing statement here, we have seen plenty of bad movies that the level of incompetence in the filmmaking actually makes the movie somewhat of a sick entertainment, a guilty pleasure, if you will. So bad that it's good. We all have plenty of movies that we love, we adore, we cherish, and we have a good time with because it's so bad that it's just a blast to experience the disaster piece that is on screen. This could have been that. And that's actually like the most optimistic version of my hopes walking in, was that maybe it's going to be so bad that I'll actually have fun with just how baffling this thing came together. But it's just not interesting enough to be that experience. Like, you think of the level of filmmaking incompetence of The Room without any of the unintentional comedy. And that's the type of experience you're going to have with Madam Web. You can't enjoy it because it's not a good film. You can't enjoy it because it's a bad film, because it's just fucking dull. It's boring. It's lifeless. It is a nothing burger. So overall, not a good start to the comic book season of 2024. Not a good look for the Sony Spiderverse. If anybody had even glimmers of faith left that Sony could eventually handle doing Spider-Man films without the assistance of Marvel, this movie is going to fucking decimate that. They're going to seriously see repercussions of this with the box office of Kraven and maybe even Venom. This is a movie that's just a disaster all the way around. And as much as I do not like to operate under hyperbole, because I think it's way too often used in movie criticism, my honest opinion, this is legitimately one of the worst comic book films I've ever seen in my life. And something else that very, very rarely do I say on this channel, I highly advise you to spend your time and money elsewhere. Well, that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed that, please click over here for all of my 2024 new release reviews so far. I'm also going to put a playlist up here of a bunch of MegaCon panels that me and some friends hosted just a couple of weeks ago in Orlando, Florida, one of which talking about the state of comic book films. Please like, share, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss everything in the future. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.